so I'm going to pick your house. After all, you forfeit your own rights by violating my rights.
Well, the government is held accountable in that situation.
How is the government?
Because the government has an obligation to provide housing.
Okay, but how do I whom do I get to hold accountable for violating my rights?
I revert back to Edmund.
Now you say you're defining a right to housing here, but then what you actually define are different ways of states implementing a housing entitlement policy. Is that correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, in your definition of a right to housing, you seem to be describing stuff that the government does, not a right at all. So I guess my question is, can you distinguish between an entitlement program and a right? What's an entitlement program? Do you know?
I will know in about 2 seconds. Oh wait, okay, cool. Yes.
Okay, can you define an entitlement program for me?
A government program that guarantees certain benefits to a particular group or segment of the population.
So isn't that really what this card is describing? Isn't it describing entitlement programs, not a right to housing?
Well, you see, wait, hold on. Hold on. Well, the definition of specifically entitlement is having a right to something. So entitlement program is based on that, I guess, foundation.
Okay, so if I'm entitled to something, that means I have a right to it, correct?
Correct.
So an entitlement program, though, that doesn't say that it meets it's not saying right, right? I mean, for example, if the government has an obligation to arrest somebody who has robbed me,
Okay.
now that's rights protection. Is that the same thing as this, as the fact that homeless people don't have houses? Is somebody committing a crime against them? Or is this different? Because I'm entitled to police protection, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, it doesn't mean I have a right to police protection. It means that if my rights are violated, the government is obligated to provide me rights protection. Okay? They're obligated to deal with the problem because they have a monopoly on use of force. In other words, I'm not allowed to go get my own property back with a gun. I have to call the cops. So their obligation to provide rights protection stems from the fact that they implement a prohibition on me protecting my own rights. So is there an equivalent here with housing? Is it that the government has an obligation to provide housing because they have prevented the homeless from getting their own housing?
No.
They haven't prevented the homeless from getting their own housing? Then why would they have an obligation to provide it? Now that makes sense with police services. Because it seems like a good thing to do rather than because people have the actual experience of having a rights violation in hand, then I'd love to hear it. What's the distinction? All right, this is what you're going to have to deal with in the round. If you do come up in this topic, you're going to have to deal with this bullshit right here. This definition. You're going to have to be able to dismantle. Now, what do you have in the card to pull upon as a card Well, first of all, read the analytics. So I'm going to be defending. You guys attack. You got the analytics. You got the distinction between entitlement program and rights. You've got the obvious argument that nobody is. Where's the right to housing come from? Is another good question to ask. Okay. And Marshall's meaning of an obligation of the state towards society as a whole. But who is accountable if the state fails to fulfill its obligation? The state is not a moral agent. I want you guys to look at the Badass Rights article that I also copied in the same folder as another thing to reference to counter this kind of bullshit. It's already highlighted out. Rights, and you want to make it about equity, basic, a minimum level of.
Not really talking about it.
Well, I mean, I don't know how this topic's going to play out. I don't know how many people are actually going to attack the rights issue, or how many people are going to just go, is it a good idea for us to spend money on a social program right now? You know? So, okay, I'm defending the mush definition. What are you guys going to do about it? All right, it's cross. I've just read that mush definition. Okay. It's a marker for change. It's a signpost. It's a marker. It's a good feeling in my heart. That's what a right to housing is.
Aww.
It's a squishy feeling in my heart. It comes from the fact that we all live in a society together and we all take care of each other.
Okay, so who has violated your rights if you don't have a house?
The government.
Okay.
How do you hold them accountable?
Well, that's what the voting booth is for. We vote those scoundrels out of office if they don't do their job.
So that's all there. So is that a criminal violation? If you don't have a house?
It's a crime that some people in this society don't have houses, yeah. And a society as prosperous as ours, it is absolutely a crime that we have a segment of the population who do not even have housing.
If the government has violated this obligation that you talk about, is that a criminal violation?
Well, I'm just saying that's why we have to affirm, is so that we don't have that awful, awful state of affairs that's tantamount to a crime.
So is that a criminal violation?
Is what a criminal violation? Being homeless? I don't think we should arrest homeless people for not having homes. No. Okay? I think we should treat them like human beings and afford them the right to housing. Gosh. Well, it should be. It's not in status quo. That's why we're having this debate, because vote. I said already.
So, okay, so since you're defining this as a right, with any other right, how are, okay, if in a different situation, if someone had made a criminal violation or was, or like, okay, so today a party had a criminal violation or like acted with a criminal violation, how would they be held accountable for any other right?
Well, can you give me an example?
Edmund, go. Okay, a robbery.
Okay, so somebody gets robbed.
So that person, the robber, like how would they be held accountable? They get voted out of being.
Did they rob a homeless person?
No.
I don't see how this is relevant.
No.
I don't see how any of this is relevant. If they didn't rob a homeless person, then why are we even talking about it?
You're right, we should vote out of being a robber.
See, I want you guys to debate like that, right? what I was just doing there? How frustrating was that for you?
That was so annoying.
All right, keep going. You got to be able to pen me some way. Come on, you got to pen me.
Well, it's literally impossible to pin you if you're just talking bullshit the entire
I'm not,
time.
but I'm giving real sounding answers. You got to make sure that the judge and me and everybody else knows that I'm talking bullshit. Otherwise, they're not going to think it's bullshit. They're going to say, "Oh, he makes a perfectly good sense."
I mean, go.
Look at the analytic on entitlement programs. Go hit that angle.
Okay. So you define this as a right. What distinction is there between an entitlement program and the right that homeless people have housed?
Well, entitlement programs are the way that the government fulfills its duty to meet the right to housing or the right to whatever. So, like when we have, for example, free healthcare, like Medicare, that's the way the government is an entitlement program that fulfills the government's obligation to meet the right to healthcare.
So how is the government obligation to provide housing different from an entitlement program?
It's not. Entitlement programs fulfill the rights of people, rights to things. It's the means by which the right to something is fulfilled by the government, who has the obligation to provide it.
So how is that different from the government's obligation to provide housing?
Wait. Are you saying like it's the same?
I'm saying that an entitlement program is one way that the government fulfills its obligations. That when one has a right to something, it confers a duty onto somebody. In this case, it's the right to housing, conferring a duty on the government to provide housing. The entitlement program is how they fulfill their duty to provide housing and how they make sure that people's rights to housing are violated.
So you're saying an entitlement program is the way in which a right is provided to people? Or a right
Yeah, it's one way in which a right is carried out. You're right, yeah.
Wait a second. Okay. Technical difficulties. 1 second.
So can I go to any federal government official's house if I'm homeless and take that house? Yeah, this is what you should be asking me, right? You got to follow up on the logical progression of this. Okay, so the government's violated my rights. Great. So which government officials can I take stuff from? I want to take their house. I'm homeless. Which house do I get to take? Okay, well, let's say I don't want your government house and I'm homeless and I persist in being homeless. Who is subject to criminal prosecution? Who? Which individual person? After all, I'm undergoing a continual state of rights violation. The fact that I chose to be out there is irrelevant. I have the right to housing and I'm not experiencing housing. Therefore, I'm experiencing rights violations. Okay, so who the fuck is going to prison? Who's going to prison? Somebody's violating my rights. I'm standing outside again. How long do I have to stand outside before my right to housing becomes violated? How long? If I stand outside for 2 days, am I no longer experiencing my blessed God-given right to housing? Do I have a right to shelter or just housing? How much housing do I have a right to? Do I have the right to 200 square feet of housing? If the government provides me a closet to stand up in, have they provided me adequate housing to fulfill their obligation to meet my right to housing? Does your definition of a right to housing mean anything at all? Or is it just you're feeling like people should have houses? Well, do you see why the pressure is like not hearing me on this shit? It's so dumb what I'm saying.
Okay. I think he actually went to go smoke a cigarette, so I was correct. Yeah, no. No, that's weird. Okay. When was this? 10:18.